Welcome to America's most livable city. Please ignore the invisibles with me. See, Pittsburgh, we built its economy, but we still lead the nation in black poverty. Welcome to America's most livable city. Just ignore the invisibles with me and state your business, cause here, the place you live in depends on your race and privilege.
Hello, everybody. It is 2:00 on Tuesday, and that means it is time for What Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know. Welcome. I'm Dr. Cheryl Hall-Russell, and I have been facilitating conversations with you all for a year plus now. And, we keep coming back with topics that you find interesting. And so we're just going to keep bringing them until you tell us to stop. So joining me today is Miracle Jones, who is the Director of Advocacy and Policy with One Hood Media. And we're also joined by Dr. Jamil Bey, who's the President of the UrbanKind Institute. Jasiri, I think, is traveling back from a well-deserved vacation. One Hood was shut down all last week as you guys regrouped. One thing I have to say in this last year, what you guys have been doing for Black media has been amazing. I am so delighted to be a part of that expansion and an expanding of our voices and advocacy. It's just been a pretty remarkable year plus. So, good to have you, Miracle. It's not your first time stepping into this, this program. How you doing?
Thank you. It's good to be back. I can never fill Jasiri's shoes, but it's cool to sit in his seat a little bit, just talk about what's going on. Yeah, we took some much needed, rest and relaxation. We've been grinding for the past almost a year and a half, nonstop. And even though a lot of us, we're still doing programs and presentations over this past week, we're very happy to be back officially. We got some really good programming, some really cool launches happening in the next couple of weeks. So very excited. I'm to be back here in the city right before Pride weekend. So we're here.
Right. That's gonna be a lot of fun. What about you, Dr. Bey? You doing okay over there? Dr. Bey was in a little bit of a depression after he had to move back stateside. So he got his smile back.
I'm okay. No, as Miracle was talking about, feeling Jasiri. Miracle, you have your own pair of shoes and they're pretty big. And so, I'm proud and glad that you're here with us today again. But I'm okay. It's summertime. It's still not warm, but I'm outside on my porch with the t-shirt. So I'm cool with that. There's a change in the air in Pittsburgh.
Yes, indeed.
Hoping that it's, sustained and, works out for us.
A lot of change going on. So if I had to guess, since we know each other that well, I'm thinking you're thinking of the political winds that are changing since we last spoke on air.
Right. And that connects back to, like you were saying, just the organizing and the media, the efforts of One Hood Media, just the messaging and the campaigns, but not just them, but all of the advocates and folks who put boots on the ground to, change the conversation about what was necessary here in Pittsburgh. And apparently that resonated with enough folks to get off their butts, during primaries, which, you don't usually get a big turnout, but enough came out to speak and be heard. And, for us, the danger would now to be complacent. It's now about digging in deeper and making sure that we continue to be heard and that we continue to support the folks who are supporting us. And I think that is the next, the current phase of the work, making sure that we're relentless and advocating for those folks who are not in a position to advocate for themselves, and that we're capturing those voices and bringing those issues to the table.
Whatever they may be. Miracle, the last time we were on, it was election day, actually. So we had no idea what was going on. And, and on this show, we don't really support or talk about a candidate. Our candidates, but I think what we've been trying to do is just make sure people understood the system. So you may have some idea from some things that we say, kind of direction that we're going. But I think just getting people involved was really important for us.
I think it's so important. Again, we took the idea that Black people are not a monolith. We have different things that drive us. We have different politics and political worldviews, but we want to make sure that people have the information and the resources to make informed decisions, to know who are the decision makers, to engage, different politicians and elected officials in a variety of ways. And I think last Tuesday, two Tuesdays ago, we saw getting people out. We saw an increase in voter turnout. We saw elections up and down the board. I think judicial elections really motivated people. I think the APA ballot initiatives really motivated people to get out and to vote and to understand. And we've been very clear, electoral politics is not liberation. This is not the end all be all.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of work that still has to be done. It's still going to be done. But it's very important when we're talking about finding ways to reduce harm, finding ways to invest in communities, finding ways to make people feel seen, heard, and validated, that happens particularly most easily through the political process, because we're all able to the majority of us are able to engage in electoral politics. I think that was very important. It was very good to see. It was lunch day was rough. we were riding around trying to get people, talking to people, passing out swag, making sure everything was okay, doing voter protection, and then trying to hit up all of the events and all the functions. There were so many different functions, but then we made it over. So we had, and if you think about, from our judges, our magistrate judges, to our Court of Common Pleas, this is the most Black people have ever been elected to serve on the bench, and it's very important that we celebrate these wins. There was wins and losses all around. We want to make sure we celebrate the people like Brenna, people like Leah, people who got on the school board. All these different changes that are happening, it's because people have been vulnerable to share their experiences, and politicians and political candidates have been willing to listen. And I think that's what's important as we build these next steps.
Advocacy works. Dr. Bey, the other change that is about to happen is around COVID, and the doors are being thrown completely open. Over this, I don't know what the date is, but we are going to be completely open soon. What are your thoughts around that?
It's soon as in today, right?
Is it today? Ooh,
yeah.
Lord.
Yeah, I think it's been very weird. I think it is today. Bars and restaurants will be full capacity. Listen, summer is open.
Right. And I think so. Things are open, and this is one of those crazy kind of decisions. I mean, there's been a whole lot of political pressure. Some folks didn't want to wear a mask at all. And some folks thought that they should have been open the whole time. And let people make, these hyper libertarians, who want.
Here's my vote.
But I think
I ain't ready to give it all up yet.
It's been so politicized, so here's the decision that you have to make. Now, we know if you are fully vaccinated, you're less vulnerable to severe effects, but you can still be a carrier. And so if I'm vaccinated, my mask is still supposed to protect those who are not vaccinated.
Yes.
And if you are not vaccinated but don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask now. And if you are partially vaccinated, or if you're have a medical situation where you couldn't have been vaccinated, so there are all these things about the mask and the politicization of it, where this decision, again, we've reached a point at nearly 70% of the adults statewide who are vaccinated. Is that the magic number? No, people are still going to be vulnerable. But also the other side of it is, because it's been so politicized, I think for the most part, everybody who wants to be vaccinated, they are. I mean, there are some folks who are waiting at the tail end. Okay, let me see. We're going to see some stragglers. But for the most part, we're not going to see massive events of people lining up to get vaccinated. And so it's going to be slow. And so you have to make the call. When do we lift the mandate? So,
yeah, well, I think people are waiting also to see if folks are going to die after the first injections. They were like, I ain't going right now. I'm going to see what happens. They sit in the whiz trying to, see if we can heads after we got it.
But
yeah.
you know,
Let me share one thing though that happened to me the other day that just confirmed for me my stance. I was at the hospital getting a test the other day. I'm fine, y'all. But on my way out, the tech that had done an ultrasound for me grabbed my shoulders and she pulled me back suddenly behind some glass and she said, "COVID patient." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I see these people running down the hallway and it looked like something out of a movie. I mean, all the gear. And I got a chance to glance face to face with somebody who looked like they were definitely in the last throes of this disease. And my heart stopped. It was stunning. This woman's extremities were blackened. There was just so much happening. And I mean, this was just a quick whiz by. And, you know, you could see all the forced air going into her lungs and all of that. And I just thought, God, you know, the risk are not worth it. I also was talking to, you know, my brother is dealing with, you know, he's had a bone marrow transplant a year ago. And, you know, he was talking about he's had he's been vaccinated, but sometimes what happens with folks who with bone marrow transplants are dealing with cancers, it's not necessarily taking. And so, you know, he may have to go in and again get vaccinated. So there are all these people floating among us in our families that are completely, if we got that little bit that you're talking about, completely be taken out of here. So it's those things that we now have to begin thinking about on a very individual level around who you were exposed to, even in your own family. So, I ain't on here to preach today about everybody lining up, but there's still some real risk that I think we really need to consider, and none of us want to be responsible for taking anybody out.
What I will say is I was also out this weekend. And what solidified it for me was this man pulled down his mask. He sneezed in his hand and started touching other stuff. And I was like, y'all have learned nothing. Y'all have learned nothing this past year. So I'm just going to keep my mask and my hand sanitizer and all
Just
of my
this
cleaning
conversation of
supplies.
sanitizing.
I was just like, and I had to tell people, and then I was like, am I rude if I just take my Lysol out and just start spraying? But I just don't think people have learned how to be use proper sanitation procedures and engage in good hygiene. And this is not being like elitist or classist. It's like, if people have still not learned to sneeze and cough in their mask, I don't have high hopes for us. And also, people want to be out. I've been in here in Atlanta, been dry, like every club, every bar, packed lines. People just want to be out. People are. I don't know about this. I don't know the second, third, fourth, fifth wave that's going to come. I don't think we're ready for it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, and I will say lastly, I think the CDC, for all the miscommunication and information they have failed to put out, they did say like we're still losing around 200 to 300 people a day, right? So like I think people also have to understand that this virus really isn't going away, and we really haven't managed it. We're just like giving it up to God at this point. So just wear your face mask, wash your hands, try to, flu numbers, all these other like viral infections, we cannot mitigate those if we still wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance, and just be a little cleaner.
It was nice going to winter without being sick at all.
I'm still stuck with this nasty ass sneezing inside of the mask, and you got that snot all up in there with you. His ass could have been at home. What are you doing out?
But one more thing before we go into what is going to be a terrific show on entrepreneurs and supporting Black entrepreneurs. There's just been a whole bunch of other crazy going on. Lord, we talked about this new law around women who may be miscarrying and how they're being targeted by lawmakers. Miracle, you want to give us a little bit on that and just this rabbit hole of sets of laws that are just kind of popping up across the nation that are really governing the bodies of women?
Yes. So people do remember that the conservatives did win the presidency. And one of the things that a lot of people had coalesced around was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so states all across the country that have conservative legislatures or conservative governors are trying to pass a slew of bills that will basically make it up to the Supreme Court in order to chip away at various Roe v. Wade protections. And here in Pennsylvania, sorry, I don't know. Sorry, and here in Pennsylvania, they're trying to get this law passed where basically if you have for any reason a fetal death, they want you to pay for a fetal death certificate with the idea that like that's supposed to dissuade you from getting an abortion. However, if you also miscarry, get in an accident, similar things, you also still have to petition the government, fill out this certificate, and pay for it if the child you're carrying does not make it to term or is stillborn, all this type of stuff. So it is an added layer of pain and heartache and just trauma for any person who's going through like a loss. It is mandatory, so it's not something that a person can request. And it is mandatory paperwork that you have to fill out. And so a lot of people are very, of course, like up in arms about this, but it's just talking about the longing political strategy that people have created about policies that they care for. And it's something that like a lot of Black people need to start to look at and analyze, like what are our long-term strategies for our communities and what steps do we need to take legally, politically, community and culturally to get these in place. So that I would say would be the takeaway, but it's just going to be, there's a lot, especially also they talked about the birth rate falling. Anytime the birth rate falls, restrictions on healthcare and reproductive justice happen. So a lot of stuff has been happening. Apparently the COVID baby boom was not enough. And so the birth rate has still dropped. And so we now have more people who are elderly versus people who are being born on a daily basis. So a lot of stuff is going to be happening around that.
Force folks to have babies, whether they want to or not. And then you're just going to have people at home miscarrying and scared to even go in to get checked. I mean, there's so many ramifications, but we won't stay there now. We just need to make sure you guys are aware of some of the things that are happening and to just, protect yourself from the madness if you can. One of the things that has been, the anniversary of the Tulsa massacre of the business district in Tulsa has been, all over the news over the last few weeks, and from all angles, from what happened, from sometimes it's the first time people have learned about that massacre. A lot of stuff like this is not taught in our schools. So, luckily this has been in the news. But a part of that was, the killing of entrepreneurs, people who could not, be a part of the broader American dream, but created their own in these communities. And I think this is an interesting segue to bring in our guests to talk about entrepreneurship today. So if we can bring in Bernard Alexander, who's the director of the E3 network with RCI, and Ms. Diamonte Walker, who was the deputy director of the URA, the Urban Redevelopment Authority. Oh, hi guys, so welcome.
You see how adroitly she made that segue? You see Cheryl, you would do that thing. She was just like, speaking of current events, boom.
Let's go talk to y'all.
That's why she's the moderator. That's why we have to pay her.
You're hilarious. But seriously, I mean, you guys are working with entrepreneurs. How is that fitting in with this kind of Tulsa Week and conversations? What is that bringing up for you?
For me, it's bringing up, I think that it's about time, right? Like, I think that we've been having a protracted conversation about how to support and drive entrepreneurialism in the Black community. And I think that we're turning a corner to really understand that the deficits around entrepreneurialism, particularly in the Black community, are because of disinvestment, not because the entrepreneurial spirit is not alive and well. And so really thinking about how to reduce barriers and increase opportunities, and the public sector's responsibility in doing that.
What's bringing up for you, Vernard?
Piggybacking off of what Diamonte said, is resources. And just trying to make sure that there's equitable amount of resources for the entrepreneurs within our region, which, so I'm kind of excited about this work and just helping more folks get connected as possible.
Excellent. So I think for us, for me personally, going back all the old pictures, I started thinking about the old pictures that, from the Hill and then from Indiana Avenue for me in Indianapolis, all of these vibrant Black communities, retail strips, hair and food and all of this stuff that were a part of, most of our childhoods that just don't exist at that level anymore. And I think COVID has been interesting because, we lost some entrepreneurs for sure, but there seems to be a bigger drive right now for people who have dreamed about owning their own. They're going for it. I mean, how have you seen that, Diamonte? How's that playing out?
It's very exciting, and it is the Tulsa Race Massacre Week, where we remember and we honor what was destroyed because of racism, right? Like that's what we're talking about here, both structural and the racism that lives on the skin, right? Lives verbally and behaviorally, and how people conduct themselves. And although it's been 100 years ago, it's not too uncommon from what we experience right now, and things have gotten better. But there's more work to do. And so I like to think of it as, I see I am optimistic about what I see. I don't look in a rearview mirror and think that our best entrepreneurial days are behind us and that we've got to be nostalgic. I think that, we also need to honor the Black entrepreneurs that are creating Greenwood right now, right here in our city. And so I just feel very fortunate to be in a position to invest in the hopes and dreams of those entrepreneurs. And so I think that with COVID, we lost our ability to be connected to one another physically. And as the world, as Pittsburgh reopens today and Allegheny County reopens today, I think we're going to see a surge in experience-based businesses, and we're going to see folks thrive. Not because, the system has figured everything out, but because they've become willing to take that risk. And that's what an entrepreneur is, the willingness to take on risk to do something transformational. I see it alive and well in Pittsburgh, and it's exciting.
Well, I mean, what do we learn, Dr. Bey? I know we've all been talking all year about, we've seen people pop up in the midst of all this kind of devastation around us. Folks have just stepped up and said, I got this. I'm going to start this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to supply this. I'm going to support this. Some of them are showing up at RCI. Vernard, what does that look like? I mean, I know your classes for entrepreneurship have doubled in this last year. Your online presence is off the chain. What's it looking like at RCI?
I think it's great overall for many organizations in addition to RCI. So before I became part of RCI, it hasn't been a month yet. I think I'm entering my fourth week at RCI, but I was connected to RCI and some of the related organizations. And like Diamonte said, yes, definitely we're focusing on the future and the present and the future. And I think we unfortunately lost a lot of businesses as a result of COVID, but at the same time, many more people decided to put their foot in the water, and some people, dove into the water, like, head first and said, hey, I'm going to try this out. And I think one of the positives, if we could say a positive, have come from a pandemic is that there appears to be a sincere focus on Black entrepreneurship, on many levels. That includes from the foundation, government, organizations, and folks who want to actually support businesses. It was very encouraging, throughout the pandemic, seeing that, as people were kind of leery about leaving the house, that folks, I think, intentionally went out of their way to kind of keep some of their same habits to support, small businesses. For example, I eat out a lot, most people know. So, just that's one of the things that I personally did was, I was Dr. Bey, I was eating out pretty much every other day, once or twice a day, doing whatever I could to kind of still stimulate the local economy.
One last question before we all jump in. I find myself doing what I tell myself not to do, which is just making generalizations that people understand who you are, what you do. You keep talking about RCI. Quickly tell folks what RCI is, Vernard.
Sure.
In your 3 weeks of being there.
Riverside Center for Innovation, which is located on River Avenue on the north side, North Shore, and RCI runs a variety of programs for someone who wants to start a business. What RCI is really known for is their tier programs, their tier 3 entrepreneur programs for folks who have an idea and they don't know what direction to go. After they graduate that program, they have an opportunity to go into a more intensive program, tier 2. And then there's a tier 1 for pretty much emerging entrepreneurs. Last week, we graduated 8 entrepreneurs in a tier 1 construction program. And out of those 8 businesses that are Black, a few of them already have contracts for over $1 million, a couple $1 million locally, doing some of this construction work that's on the Hill, Oakland, and various places around the region.
Yes, somebody's in the feed here saying that they finished up classes last week and felt it was really a great investment in themselves and their business. So I'm gonna be quiet, but I'm just wow. I'm loving what I'm hearing. What are you thinking over there, Miracle?
So I know, I guess we should jump right into it. So one of the things people are talking about, like the resources, it's been these PPP loans. And a lot of people, for like businesses and entrepreneurs, are thinking that is the way to create the business, to sustain their business. Some of these loans are being forgiven, some of the loans are not. And a lot of people are also getting caught up in investigations with these loans. What are some of the things that you are seeing locally when it comes to these PPP loans? And what are some of the guidance that you want people to understand if this is the route that they are pursuing in order to maintain or support their entrepreneurial dreams?
So I think that's a great question. And so I will go back about 14 months, back to March 2020, April 2020. One of the things that we realized at the URA very quickly is that PPP loans were not going to look out for the interests of Black entrepreneurs, that folks were going to have a very hard time not only accessing the dollars, but understanding some of the small print that may come along with those dollars, because the regulations were being developed in real time. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to find a local tool, a local instrumentality, right? Because a lot of these problems get solved at the local level when there's a huge influx of federal dollars. The folks on the ground here, RCI, the URA, Bridgeway Capital, a lot of the folks that dedicate, time and energy to this understand what our entrepreneurs need. So we took our micro loan program, which at the time was providing up to $30,000 in for a small business loan with a very low interest rate that's credit agnostic. And so we very quickly morphed that program into being an emergency loan fund that could serve as an alternative to the PPP program, because we understood that folks were just being shut out. The application process was not clear. And so we were able to start with our existing borrowing, our community of borrowers that we already had relationships with, and provide that tool. What I will say about PPP, I know that some folks that it is not a grant, it is not, free money, and anything that the government offers you typically comes with some sort of protracted bureaucracy or strings attached. And so there are a lot of organizations that are out there providing technical assistance and education on how to navigate that process, RCI being one of them. Juan and Vernard and that team over there has done a great job of that. And the URA has also provided technical assistance. I think we did like 5 webinars on how to manage a PPP loan? What are some of your alternatives? And so we are going to be, while this repayment period starts to kick in, we're going to start to offer education to the business community to make sure that folks have the resources, tools, and understanding that are needed in order to navigate that process. But I always encourage folks to look local first, to understand what are some of the grants and lending programs that are available through folks that have a direct relationship with you and are going to be there with you if you start to falter, and going to be empathetic about that. And that's what the URA has tried to do.
I'd like to add, in addition, that it's really important for entrepreneurs to know who's out here locally who can assist them. When I think Governor Wolf announced back in the fall that the state was putting grant programs together for $250 million, and $100 million of that was going to reach minority-owned businesses across the state, that entrepreneurs had to apply through a local CDFI, a community development financial institution. I think in Western PA, I think we have 4 now, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Diamonte. I think
we don't have any that are focused squarely on Pittsburgh, but there are 4 that are pretty active in the region. That's Bridgeway Capital. The North Side has a CDFI. There is also the Progress Fund. The credit union recently became a CDFI in the Hill District, and then there's Invest PGH, which is now a CDFI. So
I mentioned that, right? That our region has about 5, and in the Philadelphia region, there's about 15.
Yes.
So as many thousands of entrepreneurs that we had locally who were trying to access those grants, right? We were at a disadvantage, even though we know Philadelphia region is much bigger and they have many more entrepreneurs than we do. It becomes like, do the organizations here have enough capacity to serve the many people who have needs? So, it's definitely a layered conversation.
Yeah. And it's just a term, CDFI. I mean, we another one that we toss around a lot, Community Development Financial Institution, right? And, and there are several layers of that, like you said, I didn't know the Hill Credit Union had become one. But there are credit unions, there are banks, there are loan funds out here that are doing it, and even, kind of venture capital that comes through those. And I mean, those terms and even concepts of that, if you're sitting there with a small business idea and somebody says, man, you need to contact a CDFI, people are like, what? It's so, just trying to, what we hope to do with shows like this is to make sure that you understand how to, get access. But even if you don't go straight, you can go to an RCI or reach out to a URA who, can help you and kind of navigating what can be pretty complicated systems. I got real concerns about the PPP. I think it saved the lives of some of our organizations, but I think there was an idea of guaranteed, writing those off, and I ain't too sure. I mean, what are we hearing so far? Are those things disappearing yet? Or are we still not into that phase of the process? I'm clueless.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I'm going to be like I said, at the onset, it became very clear to us that PPP was going to be challenging to navigate, and we were going to have to develop local tools and local resources, simply because we know that larger corporations were usurping those dollars, and they would be most likely to have those dollars forgiven. The small business community really wasn't considered, and those needs were not taken into account. So I think that it's a flawed system. It was a flawed deployment, and I think it also was done under a different administration with a different relationship with the Black business community and small business community. And so what I am hoping is that now that PPP is being administered under a new administration, that some of those policy shifts and those policy changes will be able to be effectuated.
Dr. Bey, what are you thinking over there? You ready to launch a new business?
No. I was ready to jump on Vernard's point earlier. He was making a joke about, eating out. But it was making me think, that a lot of these businesses, all these resources that we're talking about, that their client base, us, That's the business. That's the most important resource. If you want these businesses we complain about, we have to support them.
Right.
We have to show up. And so where Vernard is joking about wanting to eat, yeah, support your local. You like the restaurant, make sure that they can survive through the pandemic. Support, order out, do what you got to do. That was the same argument that I used when I was in Barbados. The only thing that they produced there was rum, so I'm supporting the local economy. But but seriously, like these entrepreneurs, you have this idea for this thing, and it's a great idea, or you're good at something. That does not mean that you know how to run a business.
That's right.
Don't be too arrogant to know, okay, there are people out there who can teach me that part of it. And take advantage. You don't have to bump your head. And this is what we're learning. There are resources to help get you to that next level. Take advantage of those, plug in. Yeah. So many of us think that because we're so used to not getting support and having to do it on our own, that we don't know how to ask for help or don't know where, or think that that's a sign of our failure. And
I think that's an important distinction, because we talk about entrepreneurialism, but innovation is also sort of the companion energy that runs alongside entrepreneurialism. And so not everybody is designed to be a business owner. Not everybody wants to be a business owner, but we know that because of the pandemic, folks had to innovate and to figure out different ways to survive. And I think that there have been some businesses that have been born out of that. But this is the moment for the innovators as well, right? And so we need tools for those that can create ideas and different ways of doing things, although they may not want to handle a balance sheet and income statement, but have certainly figured out a way to help us survive in this new climate. So I want to honor them as well, the innovators and the entrepreneurs.
Right. Cool. And that's a part of it.
Yeah, that's critical. I think we're spreading out into different arenas. I mean, we know how to wash cars. We know we've got barber shop and beauty shops that proliferate and do well. I mean, there's certain avenues that we've always, kind of thrived in entrepreneurially. What do we see it as a growth area for us, though? I mean, what new is coming down in terms of innovation?
I think the life sciences, I think that, having something like a cleaning business right now, cleaning businesses have seen a lot of growth, because the first thing we look at when we go into a space is how clean is this space? We may not have thought about that. How clean is the CVS, or how, should I touch the keypad at the, where I'm checking out? Like, we weren't thinking about those things, and now we are. And so we're seeing a lot of growth there. And one of the things that I think is going to be very important for us to do locally is to really start to look at some data around what kinds of businesses is there an opportunity to start. I see a lot of growth in the lifestyle businesses as well, because we will pay a king's ransom right now for high quality, safe experiences. And so I think that entrepreneurs that can provide that kind of safe experience to get us out of our homes and reconnected to other folks, that's going to be a premium coming up in the next couple of months.
Yeah. And my brother-in-law, he works in environmental safety. And he was saying with construction and, expanding like all of the stuff, and even thinking about green and energy, a lot of environmental safety is a huge field. And you don't necessarily have to have like a 4 or 6 year degree. Sometimes it's OSHA certification. Sometimes it is just different certifications that take less than 60 hours, and you can be making upwards of $80,000 to $120,000 just doing like safety plans for a lot of these buildings. Like, think about like all of this. They're talking about building highways now with this new administration. They're talking about our infrastructure. People have to clean that up. People have to talk about how to safely get rid of all these homes with lead, all these old pipes, and so that's also a budgeting business that a lot of unfortunately, a lot of people of color, particularly Black people, are not really involved in.
Wow. Vernard, what are you seeing as areas of growth?
I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs every day, so I can't pinpoint one area, to be honest with you. Folks are branching out into everything. I can't, we have, and it's multiple women in the construction space. Folks that you think would be non-traditional, there's really just folks, whatever they decide that they want to do. I talked to an entrepreneur last night who wants to get into a business operating a dog boutique. Folks, they're really stepping out here. Whatever idea they have, they're willing to put it out there and try to see if it works. Can I answer a question that Sister Celeste put in the chat?
Sure.
Celeste Taylor, she asked if RCI is connecting to other grassroots organizations to collaborate. And I think that's a big part of my work here with the E3 Alliance with RCI. And I just wanted to mention real quick that there's 7 core members of the E3 Alliance, and hopefully within the next couple months, we'll be adding some new members. So we have Riverside Center for Innovation, Omnicelo Cares, Own Our Own, which is in Homewood, Catapult in East Liberty with Halima, Community Forge in Wilkinsburg, Axiom Advancement, which is working on becoming the first Black woman founded CDFI. And I just missed one. Did I say Community Forge in Wilkinsburg? Oh,
yeah, you did.
The University of Pitt Small Business Development Center is the 7th member. So we're looking to add more members. But there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, but I don't think the general community knows it. So we have to do a better job with the storytelling. And, I think that'll probably be part of my role as well. So for example, RCI partners with a lot of local different organizations, and, we're in a process of creating feeder programs where, if there's a overflow, for example, RCI may not do their tier 3 program again into the fall, but what happened if 20 entrepreneurs, want that assistance, startup assistance? And so that's when we may refer them to Community Forge or the Hill CDC for one of their startup programs. So just to kind of make sure that anyone who shows interest in becoming an entrepreneur, that they could be referred to one of however many organizations that will help them start to, get their idea off the ground.
If I could very quickly, because I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about what's growing in Pittsburgh. What are the 5 major sectors that are growing, where folks are thinking about starting a business, where it might make sense, and where we see a significant activity around the growth of GDP here, gross domestic product. So advanced manufacturing, so manufacturing companies that can help with logistics and getting goods to the market. Healthcare and life sciences. We talked a little bit about that. I think that Miracle even mentioned energy. Another one, financial and business services. There's a huge boom with DE&I work being a subsector of that financial and business services cluster. Information technology, and I'm going to hone in specifically on cybersecurity. So one of the things that we realized is that we had a health-based pandemic where we were not able to be in physical proximity, and we started relying on tools like the one we're on right now to connect with one another and still conduct business. If we were to see some sort of cataclysmic intervention or disruption to our grid, to the internet, that is a whole different host of problems. And so folks are already looking at ways to manage both IT and analog systems should we face that kind of cataclysmic event. So just really wanted to share with folks what's growing and where it might make sense to start looking at cottage industries that exist around those high growth areas.
One that you didn't mention, and I saw this last week when I was in Milwaukee, this brother was working on a shared commercial kitchen for caterers prior to the pandemic, catering startups. And during the pandemic, he said that every one of their members just blew up. They switched to just throwing family dinners and delivering meals. And he said all 7 of his members now could be standalone, but they got so good at just using that commercial space as, they share in some of the prep work, and they all got their own brand, and people order meals and they deliver them all over Milwaukee. And it just came out of, hey, how can these catering startups who need a kitchen get that commercial kitchen space? and now he's like running out of space. But that model and that idea just took off.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important what you just said, Diamonte, like the growth areas, and it'll be really interesting to see if any of what Vernard and other organizations like RCI are actually seeing. Is there a match between the kind of businesses that people are wanting to start and these growth areas for our region? And should there be? I mean, is this where they're going to more than likely get paid and be able to kind of build wealth, or should we kind of stick with the innovation that we have on an individual basis now? Should these things be matching each other in any way?
From a supplier diversity standpoint, I think that they have to, but I don't think that it needs to be exclusive. I mean, that's why I said cottage industries, because just like Dr. Bey said that, business and financial services are starting to do an uptick. Well, those folks may want to order from companies that can cater again and create safe dining experience for them for their meetings, because there's going to be an uptick in, needing to order now that the world's opening back up to order on site. So I think it's an and strategy. And I'm a big believer in the nano micro business cultivation, because that's so important. That's where growth is going to happen most quickly here in Pittsburgh. But I also want to be mindful of the fact that we have some tier 3 companies that are ready to grow and need to be able to participate in that macro economy. And we've got to be focused on how to get them there and make sure that those equitable opportunities are being opened up.
Yeah, that's no joke. I mean, my company kind of blew up this last year, and I thought I was ready. But I was like, hell, I had to hire a couple folks, but, it just got overwhelming for a minute, and just have to sit back in the pocket and talk to some folks to help me strategize around that. There was no shame in that. What I hope people are hearing, that we're really encouraging you to kind of reach out to those who understand this at a whole nother level to, for these expansions. And, you can't work yourself into the ground. One person or two, you can get all the business in the world, and after a while, you're going to start messing up. You can't manage it. Smart growth is important.
That's why I'm excited about this work and an opportunity in the region, with all the wonderful ideas that folks have, but more so helping folks build their internal infrastructures, and like we were talking earlier, Dr. Russell, there's a big need for minority-owned contracting businesses, right? But, and there's plenty of folks who have the expertise to start their own construction business, their landscaping business, their painting contracting business. But, we have to make sure that before we put them out there to get these contracts, that they have their infrastructure in straight, their back office. And, so that's one piece. So, we're confident that they could do the work, but we need to make sure that their infrastructure is tight, right? And then after that, then we need to work with our partners like the URA or the Bridgeway Capitals, et cetera, to make sure that these types of businesses have access to capital.
That's right.
Because, you can get a contract working on a Lower Hill district, right? But if you don't know that if you turn in your billing for May 1st through 31st on June 5th, you have to understand that you're not going to get paid for about 70 to 85 days, right?
October.
So that could put a business out of business before the next pay cycle, right? And so we have to make sure that there's enough, mechanisms in place so that we don't set these businesses up to fail.
That is so key, Vernard. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about, the URA has a suite of loan programs that address access to capital needs for businesses that are typically unbanked, or the major banking industry is not interested in investing in them. So I've made it my business at the URA to make sure that we are investing in these folks. And Dr. Russell, I was saying that earlier, you helped to approve the micro loan program. And so all of our programs that provide access to capital at the URA are really born out of the URA's board at the time saying, we need to do something to support Black businesses. And so our programs are credit agnostic, and they sort of graduate you into being able to access capital at the rate that your business is growing. And so very soon we will roll out a line of credit that is being funded by F&B to ensure that folks on the Lower Hill have a line of credit, not a loan, but a line of credit you know, if $500,000 where you can keep payroll going and mobilize your project so that you don't go under and you're not living from invoice to invoice. That's very, very important for the future of our Black businesses here in the region.
And then those lines of credit start getting tightened up on, you know, during the pandemic. People started, I mean, the banks started shrinking those lines. And yeah, and, you know, one of the things I did early on, even before I needed it, I got a line. And guaranteed that that was in place in case, and you know, I didn't have to pull on it during the pandemic, but it was there in case I needed to. But just teaching people, you know, Vernard, I'm assuming you're teaching people about that, why those lines of credit are necessary, and because I witnessed, especially during the construction of the grocery store in the Hill District, some of the smaller Black, you know, businesses were like, "Yo, it's been 30 days." We struggling over here. You know, what do y'all expect us to do? Because I can't do A, B, or C on this job until we get some money. That is a very real thing that really knock us over.
And the members of the E3 Alliance and some of the other local entrepreneur organizations that, you know, help businesses, they're quite aware of this. So they try their best to teach the entrepreneurs these things.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're fully aware and ready. So, you know, so we're not setting them up for failure.
You cannot get a line of credit when you need it.
Right.
That's when the banks see you as a risk. You have to apply for that when you in times of plenty, when you can show that things are going well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, some of my work will include looking for gaps in the ecosystem. And so last week, I pulled together a group of entrepreneurs who have graduated from one of the local programs through the E3 Alliance, and just to have a conversation with them to find out what they like, what they didn't like, but what they also feel like is missing. So I haven't had a chance to share this with the members yet, but I will tell you one thing that's come up, you know, to entrepreneurs is bookkeeping, right? You know, there's folks out there saying, "Hey, I need help with bookkeeping. Is there a class? You know, is there a series of classes that's going to help me get my books together?" You know, one person said, I had all this money coming in, but I really didn't know if I made any money or not. You know, I used some of that money to live off of, but I really don't know if I was profitable or not. So, you know, just looking to find out what are the needs of the entrepreneurs in addition to the programs that's out there, so that we make sure that, you know, we're not leaving anyone in the dust.
Yeah, I think that Camille and Sam with Greenwood Week, some of the things that they do try to do is bring a lot of these like programs and resources to people, and that's coming out in a few weeks. But in addition to bookkeeping, insurance policies, you know, all the different types of insurances that people have to have based on the type of business that they're doing. What are some of the other infrastructures that people need to have set up before they're launching their business?
So I just want to say real quick, the organizations are teaching those things, right? But I think what the entrepreneurs are saying is we actually need someone to hold our hand through that process. You know, it's cool to participate in a Zoom or online class for 2 hours where someone talks about bookkeeping, but hey, can I actually maybe, you know, have someone, you know, maybe over a course of 2 or 3 sessions, literally walk me through QuickBooks or through whatever accounting system that I create. So I feel like some entrepreneurs are feeling like they wish that they could actually have maybe a mentor that's also a successful entrepreneur, so that they could relate to it a little bit better.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. That totally makes sense. I mean, I have hired CFOs for 20 years, but when I launched as an entrepreneur, suddenly I got QuickBooks and I'm doing payroll. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. How does that, wait a minute. I don't want the feds coming after me. And that was a big thing that I had to learn. I had to teach myself QuickBooks. And then I realized, hey, I'm gonna need somebody to come in and make sure I'm not making a mess. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I keep doing it, but I definitely checked in. And you're right, 2 hours, on a Zoom was not going to do it. It definitely was not going to, going to do it. People are on talking about a couple of things, and I'm looking at the chat. Someone came in and started talking about opportunities for, kind of buying large commercial buildings or warehouses to look at housing entrepreneurs. Are there, are there spaces opening up where, Black entrepreneurs are starting to look at buying bigger places to go in together? Is that becoming a trend or interest?
So one of the things that, we've been doing at the URA, particularly around retail, is working with Halima Tammy Thompson at Catapult to create co-located retail space. There's really not a model anywhere else in the city that does what Tammy is doing. And
Right.
So giving entrepreneurs the opportunity to share some of that cost burden, to be connected to one another and to really build that vibrant community that is so important to growth and being able to sustain a business. The URA, owns, thousands of parcels across the city. Unfortunately, very few parcels that are of warehouse scale. But can certainly be a conduit within the real estate market to help entrepreneurs locate space and activate spaces. So part of what we'll be doing under the Avenues of Hope is looking at Black communities that have these naturally occurring assets, and how can we work with entrepreneurs to reclaim those assets and make them available for affordable commercial use, to basically co-op what the market does for the big folks. How can we replicate that for small, diverse business? So that's one of the things that we will be working on going into 2022. And, certainly need, other partners and nonprofit entities. And so Vernard talks about the E3 network. I call it the C3 network, the city, county, and civic institutions that need to work together for a more common sense ecosystem on our side of it. We need to be more coordinated. And so, over the next couple of months, we will be ramping up that activity now that Vernard is in his role as the director on the E3 side. We will be working in partnership to make sure that folks have the support that they need.
Yeah, I mean, this whole conversation has been about opportunity, which is fascinating to me at a time when we have been feeling so overwhelmed by a lot of the negative stuff. There's a lot going on. I mean, there are a lot of people just stepping out, and and I'm glad you guys are having conversations about what those needs are, those back office needs to keep them afloat, that money that needs to be behind them that's going to keep them afloat, and that these opportunities that are popping up. We've been populating our chat with information for those of you who have launched or thinking about launching. What's the advice? We're hoping people, I want to say fearless. You got to have a little fear because you're going to do something crazy. But how do we get folks who are on that bubble to go, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna, what's your advice to those folks who are vacillating as we start to get toward the end of this program today?
My advice would be for folks to feel that fear. That fear is real, and if you don't feel that fear, I'm more concerned about that. But to make smart decisions, and it's okay to assume risk. And that we are in a climate right now where folks have to ensure that their investments match their rhetoric. So if you're going to start a business, now is a great time to do it, because everybody's trying to figure out how to live up to their statements that they issued around in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And so now is an opportunity to sort of capitalize on what folks say they want to do and to really put some pressure on these systems to actually do it. And that provides a little bit of a safety net for entrepreneurs to if you're going to fail, this is a great time to get out there and experiment.
Okay, what do you think of Bernard? How pushing folks off the ledge, or what you're putting a little safety thing on their backs as they go?
Just try it, do it. For so many years as an entrepreneur who had a full-time job, people tried to make me feel bad because I still had a full-time job. Test the waters out, and if it works, great. If it doesn't,
I'm sorry, I do have to jump at. I had a hard stop at 3:00, but Celeste has an excellent question in the chat regarding the URA and working with community farms and gardens. So it's a very important question, because I always say that land intersects that power, and we've got to figure out a way to make land more equitably accessible, particularly to the needs of Black grown farm to table issues. And so the URA is very recently became sort of the convener of the Pittsburgh Land Bank. Both Dr. Bey and I are, I'm the executive director, Dr. Bey is a board member, but we are going to, start to work, with the URA to figure out how can we earmark sites that can be brought under community ownership for the purpose of activating green space and urban agriculture. That's very, very important to me. We do have a nascent side lot program that ran a few years ago. That's going to be resurrected in order to make that process more transparent and more accessible. We are doing some work with some urban farms right now, particularly fluoridated out in Hazelwood. We also work with Soil Sisters, but we really need to scale that work up. And so I look forward to doing that over the next couple of months.
All right. We appreciate you.
Right.
I know you were on a tight one, but I was going to ask you about Celeste's question. Thanks. We're going to have to come back and talk about land and buildings and warehouses and all of that, but we're going to let you slide out. We're going to hang on to Vernard for a few more minutes. Thanks,
you.
Diamonte. All right, Vernard, have you been having any conversations about space? As people, we're ready to go, but where are we going to go? I know RCI has some recently priced, space in its building.
Right. We definitely have a few openings here. And just today, I guess maybe because the mandates are over, Dr. Bey, I've seen more people in the building today than I have been since I started here 4 weeks ago. So, as far as entrepreneurs in space, I think it really just depends on the type of business they have, and that's why I said, test your idea out first. Yet you don't have to go and, lease a small space on Main Street for $1,000 a month or so. Test your idea out, create a website, if you have some type of product, that you sell it on your website, or, there's many apps where you can create stores now. And like Diamonte said, there's a lot of shared space, coming up on board. So I think, make an educated decision on that. I think maybe because of the pandemic, hopefully, some of these real estate prices will go down throughout the region. Unfortunately, not on a residential level, but maybe on a commercial level, because, all these corporations may say, hey, we may scale back a little bit and let more and more folks work from home. So that may help folks, on one end, but that remains to be seen.
I'm in RCI's building. I got one small space because I was losing my mind working at home. I needed somewhere to go. And so, it's great being in a building with, other entrepreneurs who have launched, and we kind of, we haven't been able to meet with each other very much yet because of the pandemic. But I was on the floor of one of those shared space things. And as soon as the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, won't be doing this anymore, but it's nice to have, my own space to be able to run the business. So we're close to wrapping up, guys. So go ahead. What were you about to say?
I was just going to say, if someone really wants to get outside of their house, right, or their apartment, that there's a lot of co-working space in the region, and some of those co-working space, are super affordable. There's a Black-owned one on the north side, Manifest, and you can get into space for literally a couple $100s a month. There's some options out there where you can get partial memberships where you're in a space a few days a week, and it's super affordable. A lot of these spaces you can get, you can rent space for under the price that someone will probably pay for their car payment.
All right. So we are getting close to wrapping up. Anything you guys want to add? Miracle, what's going on that you want to make sure that we're sharing before we close out today? This has been a fantastic conversation, by the way.
It has been a fantastic conversation, just to encourage folks to get involved, to reach out to Vernard if you have any questions about entrepreneurship. I did see something that said, like, your friends and family are your marketing and promotion team, but not necessarily your clients. And so I always want to just make people to stay encouraged.
Amen.
Listen, just to make sure, I do try to support. There's a lot of people. I've seen so much innovation happening during this pandemic, and I salute everybody who's trying to make it work and is trying to get out there and do communal work. And a lot of I know Bernard was talking about, like, shared space, but like to lift up, like, a lot of mutual aid work. But there's a lot of collaborations that are going on, and that's what makes our community strong, and that's what gives people longevity. But it's June, it's Black Music Month, it's Pride Month. We have Juneteenth coming in a couple of weeks. There's so many events that are happening. Just remind people, just take it slow. Take it slow.
You don't have to do something every day.
You don't have to do something every day. Remember, people's social skills have kind of fallen off a little bit. Remember that people are not necessarily respecting personal space. There's been a lot of fights, a lot of things happening, but just take it slow. Ease back into being in social situations. Just, have fun, be happy we're back out and about and it's warm outside. Just take it slow. So I'm gonna say. There's a lot of events happening, but it's gonna be a good summer.
I think so. Dr. Bey, any closing thoughts?
Who's that? John Legend, Take It Slow?
Don't make me bust out singing.
No, that won't be me. No, I was thinking, it never came back up in the conversation, but Miracle asked the question earlier about, other things that entrepreneurs need to know. And I think I've seen people make the mistake, consider what permits you need to be in that industry, in that field. And this goes to a question that Celeste was pretty active in the chat today about the laundromat. Somebody, wanted to open a laundromat here in Belts Hoover, put all new equipment in, had everything ready to go. And everybody's like, okay, we need a modern laundromat. And he didn't get the proper permits. And that place sat empty for 13 months because, laundromats require additional permits. You got all that gas and all this detergents and stuff going, and it's just a permitting process.
Yeah, you know what?
Right. Had he done that earlier in the process, while he was doing the build out, they could have had that. The place could, but he lost 13 months of income.
Oh, it's pain.
Right.
Wow.
And I think, it shouldn't take that long, but I think what happens sometimes is that when folks do changes to buildings within the city, that if you don't get those permits, it's so hard to get those inspectors out. So I could definitely kind of see how it took 13 months.
Right.
That is so unfortunate. But so we're working on a website. I put my email in the chat. We're working on a website that should go live in about a month or so. And it's going to have information about the 7 E3 members. And so the organizations that you get connected to regarding entrepreneurship. Over the next couple months, I'm going to be meeting with the 20 or 30 other organizations here locally that do a little bit of work with entrepreneurship. And when we meet with them, we're going to find out if there's equity among their organizations and if they meet some of our basic requirements to become part of the members of the E3 Alliance. And what we're going to do with the website is basically like build a map of entrepreneurship within a region. So if someone wants to start a business, Dr. Bey, and they just have an idea, so where do I go next? So you come to this website and you can find out information about these 7 organizations that deal with startup. Or if you already have a thriving business, maybe your business that grows $50,000 or more after taxes, like where can you refer me to get to the next level? So there's those organizations that have incubators and accelerator programs, but a lot of times our people don't have access to them. And there's not a lot of equity among those organizations. So some of my work is going to be kind of helping cut through that red tape and to make sure that our folks, have access to these organizations and to these resources to make sure that folks who need to excel, they have that opportunity to.
Fantastic. I'm so, happy that you guys are doing this work. You and others, there's room for everybody who's going to be, out here supporting entrepreneurs. That's, it's just great. We'll keep at this. We'll keep bringing you guys on and others like you who will help build up what we need. Some of the systemic racism, institutional racism, it ain't going away anytime soon. Folks are building up their power and hanging on to it for everything that it's worth. And so we really need an army of entrepreneurs who are they can't save everything, but it's definitely a really viable option for so many to use their strengths and talents to create their own. So, we're strongly encouraging that, and we're glad we've got safe places for them to go as they go about doing it. So unless one of my partners has something else to add before we go, that's, Dr. Bey, you just came off. You got anything left? All right. So we're back on an every 2-week format. That means we're coming back on the 15th of June with our next show. We'll hype it starting next week and let you know what we're going to be doing. We're still wide open for your ideas. Again, we love to be driven by community interest with this show. That's the whole point. And so continue to go in later on and say, hey, y'all ain't done a show on, and whatever that is. We're going to be doing some more education stuff. There's more stuff around finance. There's more stuff around just you name it. We're
relationships.
Yes, Bernard wants to be on the next relationship program and leading that. So we're going to make sure we're going to have him on that one because, believe it or not, it was probably one of our highest rating shows, which was hilarious. So anyway.
I just want to say I have 3 married couples on my resume. So.
What?
Yeah. I just don't connect people via business. I
had to put you in. I was like,
oh no, like that.
Community, culture, and industry. You need to be connected. You got to get with the Connect King.
If you're rolling like that, we got to talk later. I'm gonna need to look at some of them resumes that you got.
So
right.
that Will Smith
you have to bring
based
back.
On you.
We I know you stopped it, but you probably should bring back like Who Wants to Date Bernard's Friend. I feel like we got new people in the city. I feel like people are ready to mingle.
That's the name of the show. Who Wants to Date Bernard's Friend?
Who Wants to Date Bernard's Friends? All right. So that is a consideration for the 15th or the 30th. So we'll be behind the scenes developing our next program idea, but this ended on a hella note, y'all.
All right. Listen,
all right.
Bernard could start like a dating game show as his next entrepreneurial venture. Right? Let's bring it all together. Let's wrap it all together for our entrepreneurial. That could be his next pop-up event. And
we got space in the building, Bernard. We can do it.
Let's do it.
Save video.
Be sure to have a slideshow with some bios, man, or your friends.
I'm gonna pull this thing back into control and just say thank you as usual for joining us for what Black Pittsburgh Needs to Know. We will see you again on June 15th. Peace. Guys.
Peace.
Bye-bye.